One of the things that really helped me at Pickwick was my rod selection. The standard for crankbait rods over the last couple of years has become a 7-foot or even longer rod, and I've always preferred a 7-foot long rod. I use a St. Croix Premier Glass. It's a fiberglass blank rod. This season, I got a couple of 6-foot 6-inch rods. And I got them for a couple of reasons. I wanted something I could throw a big topwater bait on. The rod loads up really well with a big topwater bait. You can throw it a long distance. It's short enough when you're working like a walking topwater bait. It doesn't hit the water. It's soft enough that you know, you can still set the hook really well. It's got plenty of backbone, but it's soft enough that you're not going to lose a big fish. That shorter length was very important at Pickwick because I was fishing cypress trees, and a lot of them had branches that were only a foot, maybe 18 inches off the water. And with the shorter length rod, you know, I was actually able to make a little roll cast, keep the bait low to the water, and actually throw the bait underneath those limbs and get it right up next to the tree and come around that tree much more. It was a lot easier to do that than with a 7-foot rod, and I didn't realize how much easier it was until I had actually fished with the 6.6 for a couple of days. On the third day, I actually had a rod laying on the deck with a different color crankbait tied on it. I actually picked it up and tried to do the same thing with the 7-footer, and I was amazed at the difference and how much harder it was to make that same cast, to make that little roll cast and get it up underneath with the 7-footer. The 6.6 just made it so much easier to make those little short casts that I was making. 90% of my shallow water cranking I do with 15-pound vicious fluorocarbon. If I'm fishing around at Pickwick, I was actually using 17-pound a lot because I was actually throwing in between a lot of the clumps of cypress trees where there'd be 2 cypress trees or 3 cypress trees real close together, and I was making those little short casts in between the cypress trees. And the last thing I wanted was to hook a 4 or 5 pound fish on the back side of the cypress tree and you know, have to take the chance of losing one because my line was too small. So I was throwing 17 a lot. The last day I actually spooled up one of these rods with 15-pound vicious fluorocarbon as well as the 17 that I had been using. What I found was the 15-pound was either letting my bait get a little bit deeper because of the smaller diameter, or being smaller diameter and a little bit limper, it was actually letting the bait have a little more action. But there was something there that you know, the last day of the tournament I wound up catching 23 pounds, which was more than anybody else had caught all week long. And there was some little something there. I really feel like about changing the line size, you know, downsizing to 15-pound, that really helped me out. 15-pound fluorocarbon is what I throw my little shallow crankbaits on probably about 80 to 90% of the time. I will use monofilament when I want the bait to run higher in the water. I'll switch to the 15-pound ultimate, which is the vicious monofilament. I'll switch to 17-pound ultimate when I want the bait to stay up higher in the water column. I'll also change to monofilament when I want a duller feel, when I don't want to feel the bait as well. That's one of the nice things about fluorocarbons. Even with a fiberglass rod, which is typically not as sensitive, with fluorocarbon line on it, you get a much better feel for what that bait's doing because the fluorocarbon is such a dense material. It gives you a lot more sensitivity. That's not always a good thing when the fish aren't really aggressive and aren't taking your bait really well. It can actually work against you if you can feel what's going on. So sometimes, and I always carry an extra reel in the boat. If I know I'm going to be fishing my little E1, I'll have a reel spooled up with 15-pound monofilament, as well as what I have on the reel that I'm using, which is, like I say, typically 15 fluorocarbon. If I start missing fish, or if I'm hooking fish short, if I'm hooking them on the back hook, sometimes I'll just sit down, take the reel off, and change to the monofilament. And sometimes I've seen that happen where it made all the difference in the world between all of a sudden, you know, those fish aren't getting it by the back hook anymore. My reaction time is slower, and they're actually getting the bait better before I realize that they're there and pull the rod away from them.
Okay. A slow or mid retrieve reel as opposed to a high speed?
When I'm fishing these little baits, I always use a 6.3 to 1 reel, or you know, a 6 to 1 reel, and it's really a matter of efficiency. Because when I'm fishing them, I am not fishing them slow. I'm trying to put the bait in front of as many fish and around as many targets as I can in the shortest period of time. And there's nothing slow about it. I may be moving the boat slow, moving from target to target, but I'm making a lot of casts at each target to try and put that bait, you know, repeadedly in front of those fish that I feel like are around that target.
And projected strike zone.
And I'm running it fast. I'm running it fast, stopping it, running it fast, stopping, you know, stop and go, stop and go. I'm throwing it out there and I'm bringing it home. It's not a slow thing. No, sir.